It's February 2025 and I'm high up a barranco, a ravine on the slopes of the old volcano that created this island, as I embark on a series of journeys to explore Gran Canaria. I've been staying in Meloneras, the westernmost part of the resort town of Maspalomas on the southern tip of Gran Canaria, a resort that stretches from Bahia Feliz in the east to Meloneras in the west. I'm continuing my exploration of Gran Canaria by taking day trips to visit more of the island, starting the tour up the north coast, diverting inland before reaching the town of Firgas, and from there returning south through the very heart of the island, including through the crater of the volcano that formed Gran Canaria. After pickups throughout Maspalomas, the tour heads north and turns inland, travelling up the Barranco de Guayadeque to the small village of the same name. The island is dotted with ravines, barranco in Spanish, formed as flows of at first lava and later water poured down the edge of the volcanoes that form the island, creating deep ravines that at time of rain turn into rivers, but for most of the year are dry valleys that lead up from the coast to the peaks of the mountains. Sheltered from the winds and sands of the coast, ravines become lusher and greener as you travel up them, all the time the steep mountainous walls of rock rising up beside you. The Barranco de Guayadeque is one of the largest ravines in the Canary Islands and has been a home to people since long before the arrival of the Spanish. Whilst the rocks bear down on the ravine, they're not as solid as they might at first look, with the stone being worn down and later worked by hand into caves that at first provided shelter and later became full communities. Over years of archaeological excavation, large collections of utensils, as well as the mummified remains of the indigenous population of the island, stretching back centuries, have been uncovered. But it's not just in history that the caves have been lived in. Today there is still a thriving community of people living in houses carved into the walls of the cliff faces, with bedrooms and living spaces hidden within the rock of a mountain, sheltering from the broiling Canarian sun in the summer and keeping a steady temperature through the cooler winter months, which at several hundred metres above sea level are not the same as those in the warm sun resorts on the south coast. Our first stop is in the small settlement of Cueva Bermeja, or Red Cave, referring to the striking red colour of the stone here. As part of the tour, you're welcomed into the home of one of the long-term residents of the hamlet, an opportunity to look inside these unique spaces which have been adapted and updated over the centuries to the point where, if it wasn't for the very low ceilings and lack of windows, you could imagine being in any regular building. After taking in the cave houses, there's a little bit of free time to explore more of Cueva Bermeja, to take in both the architecture and natural beauty of the barranco.
Aber die haben ja Familie und alles so.
Back down towards the road level, there's even a small chapel, the Ermita de Guayadeque, or Hermitage of Guayadeque, carved into the rock. From Cueva Bermeja, the tour heads through the narrow roads, up over the hills of the Barranco, and down to the town of El Goro. On the outskirts of El Goro is an aloe vera production plant that extracts the gel from the leaves of the plant and turns them into a variety of products, from juice drinks to medicinal products via shampoo and wrinkle cream. The small plantation of aloe vera plants is more for show, as most of their production is grown in giant plantations on other islands of the archipelago and shipped here for processing. The tour shows, on a basic level, how the gel from the centre of the leaves is extracted. Naturally, there is a short sales pitch on all the wonders of the plant and its products, including the chance to smell, touch and taste the almost alien-looking raw product. Though don't touch the yellow-coloured bits. They've got a very laxative effect. From El Goro, it's a relatively long drive towards the north of the island, bypassing the capital, Las Palmas, and round to the west, an eponymous capital of the smallest municipality on the island, Firgas. Located 465 metres above sea level, the town offers views over the west, north and east coasts of the island, but its most visited attractions are the Paseo de Gran Canaria and the Paseo de Canarias, which cascade down the main pedestrian road in the town centre. The Paseo de Gran Canaria is formed of a cascade fountain that runs down the centre of the street. To one side of the walkway are the 22 coats of arms of municipalities of Gran Canaria, accompanied by stone benches decorated with typical Canarian ceramic tiles, depicting local scenes for each location. Above it, the Paseo de Canarias depicts the 7 main Canary Islands as you climb up the road, each showing a model of the island, its coat of arms, and a typical scene from the island made out of ceramic tiles. Starting with Gran Canaria at the bottom of the hill, then Lanzarote, Fuerteventura, Tenerife, La Palma, and finally the 2 smaller islands of La Gomera and El Herrero, before a final ceramic tile depiction of all the islands and their locations in the Atlantic. From Firgas, the tour turns to the south and heads to the lunch stop in Zamora. Between Firgas and Zamora, the tour starts climbing high into the mountains as we zigzag our way up the twisting mountain roads, climbing from 465 metres to around 1,000 metres above sea level in just over 8 kilometres of driving. The restaurant sits high on the Barranco de Teror, overlooking the town of the same name some 400 metres below it, and in the distance the very north of the island and the capital Las Palmas, but sweeping round the mountain continues to climb high above us. After lunch, it's a short drive onto the Mirador Degollada de Becerra. The viewpoint is close to the very centre of the island and looks due west straight down the heart of Gran Canaria, sandwiched between the Almaguria Mountains to the north and the Mejoranas Mountains to the south. These are the remnants of the ancient volcano that was at the centre of the island. High on the mountains are the rock formations of Roque Nublo, and further round, rising from the heart of the caldera, Roque Bentaiga. Roque Nublo is the monolithic remains of a pyroclastic flow from the explosive eruption of a stratovolcano that used to be here and is considered one of the emblems of the island. From Roque Nublo, we take a stunning drive through the heart of Gran Canaria. The ride is one of the most dramatic of the trip, as we first descend and then ascend to nearly 2,000 metres to reach the summit of the island and the rim of the ancient volcano, passing through a gap in the ridge and entering the caldera of the stratovolcano that formed Gran Canaria millennia ago. The next stop is at the Mirador de Tunte, where there are views around the walls that once formed the inside of a volcano's cone, and then southwest down the island towards the coast. It's a short 6-kilometre drive, albeit with a pretty steep descent, to our final stop of the day, the village of Fataga. On the way down, the road continues to wind dramatically, sweeping backwards and forwards between the different slopes of the mountain before meeting the Barranco de Fataga, also known as the Valley of 1,000 Palm Trees, and continuing down its eastern slope all the way into town. Fataga is generally considered to be one of the towns that has best preserved the rural architecture and heritage of Gran Canaria, with many of the buildings having kept their traditional Canarian style inside the old, narrow, stone-paved streets. Fataga is the last stop of the day, and from here the coach returns to Maspalomas, but not without one final dramatic ascent over the mountain ridges on the ride back south down the Barranco de Fataga. My second tour was a complete circumnavigation of the island, visiting the south, west, north and east coast of Gran Canaria as we experienced a mini-continent of landscapes in a day. After pickups along the coast, our first stop of the morning was the harbour village and beach of Puerto de Mogán. Originally a small fishing port serving the village of Mogán, some 12 kilometres to the north and situated at the end of the Barranco de Mogán, over the years the port has grown into a town as the tourist hotels and resorts moved in, taking advantage of the shallow bay and sunny sands of the Playa Mogán, and the fishing harbour evolving into a marina for pleasure crafts and yachts. The bulk of the building work on the town began in the 1980s to a unified plan, creating a town that's sometimes referred to as Little Venice due to the canals that were built leading in from the harbour into town. Careful not to repeat the mistakes of other towns along the coast, the local government banned the construction of buildings more than 2 stories high in the centre of Puerto de Mogán. The bulk of the hotels were a kilometre or so out of the centre of town further up the Barranco, meaning the look of a former fishing village has been largely retained, if you ignore your typical fishing village having high-end fashion retailers and watch shops. Puerto de Mogán was also the final pick-up point for joining the tour, so now with a full coach we could start the journey in full by leaving the port and heading inland, up the road to Mogán itself, and then further on into the mountains and the Rainbow Rocks. The Fuente de los Azulejos, or Fountain of the Tiles, is an area of rock formations that was once inside the volcano that helped to form the island. The colours come from the oxidisation reactions of different elements within the rocks that were formed during volcanic eruptions, weathered over time into a palette of pastel colours from greens and yellows to reds and purples. From the multicoloured mountain, it's a drive along the edge of the mountains as we head northwest towards the coast and the village of San Nicolás. We continue beyond the village and down to its harbour and beach in Los Caserones. The beach is a natural break in the high sea cliffs that dominate the western coast of the island, with only a handful of access points between here, Puerto de Mogán to the south, and our next destination, Agaete, to the north. The stone beach here looks out across the deep Atlantic trench towards Tenerife in the distance that, if there hadn't been a kalima, a warm dusty wind from the Sahara making the sky hazy, may have been visible from the beach. At the end of an elevated walkway you reach the Chaco de la Aldea, a small lake located below the level of the beach which was used in the past as a fishing hole. At high tides, the sea floods over the top of the beach, filling the lake and washing fish into it. When the tide withdraws, the fish are stranded in the lake and are easily taken, even by hand. From Los Caserones, the coach heads back up into the cliffs, taking the historic road that winds around the sea cliffs and onto Agaete. Leaving the coast, we initially head inland on the new road, the GC2, this section opening in mid-2017 between San Nicolás and El Risco to replace the historical coastal road which had been cut off in a landslide in September 2016, forcing its permanent closure and forcing the communities of the west coast into a lengthy diversion inland. Beyond the junction for El Risco, we join the Old Coast Road, a route that runs along the side, high up some of the tallest sea cliffs in Europe. The rest of the route will soon be replaced by the final section of new motorway that cuts through the cliffs in a series of dramatic tunnels and viaducts, which will complete a full circular motorway around the island, dramatically speeding up connections to the towns and villages on the west coast, but also potentially taking away some of the most dramatic bits of road on the island if further landslides disrupt the old road in the future. The Puerto de Agaete is an important transport hub in the island, with the motorway linking it back to the capital Las Palmas at speed, and the port ideally suited for high-speed catamaran links across the channel to the co-capital of Canary Islands in Santa Cruz de Tenerife in less than 90 minutes. The town is also the lunch stop for the trip, with an hour for lunch in a restaurant and 30 minutes free time to explore the village, beach and harbour, including taking in the stunning views of the cliffs close in on the village and the view back along the route we just travelled along. After lunch and sightseeing, it's a short drive up the coast to the town of Gáldar, almost at the northwestern corner of the island, and the industrial stop of the day. The town of Gáldar, looked down on by the brooding peak of a now hopefully extinct volcano, was once capital of one of the ancient kingdoms of the island before the Spanish conquest. Today, the town is at the heart of the fruit-growing business on the island, with citrus fruits and local canary and bananas growing under protective covers in the fields. The stop for the afternoon is at one of the banana plantations, where there's a short explanation from the guide on how the plants are grown, from the initial mother plant to the bunch. Bananas have been grown in the Canary Islands since at least the 6th century, with the local varieties being smaller than the typical bananas seen in Western European supermarkets, as they're more prone to damage in transportation. Grown inside with translucent roofing materials that allow sunlight through, the bananas start growing downwards, but then bend up towards the light as they grow, creating the shape they're famous for. Though no explanation was given for the role of the peacocks in banana production. From Gáldar onwards, the driver can relax as the rest of the tour is conducted along the motorway network, initially as we speed along the north coast on the original part of the GC2 motorway onto the capital Las Palmas de Gran Canaria. This is the original part of the motorway which opened in stages between the capital and Agaete from the late 1970s until the 1990s. There is a 30-minute stop in the island's capital, which is also the co-capital of the Canary Islands as a whole, sharing duty with Santa Cruz de Tenerife. The tour dropped you off at the Auditorio Alfredo Kraus at the very southern end of the Las Canteras beach that forms the western edge of the city. The Canarian tenor was born in Las Palmas in 1927 and is considered one of the best light lyric tenors of the second half of the 20th century, so it was only natural when a new auditorium was built in Las Palmas, it would be named after him. From outside the auditorium, there are views back up along the Las Canteras beach towards the Peninsula de la Islet, the northernmost point of the island and home to more, hopefully extinct, volcanoes. From Las Palmas, it's a speedy run back down the main GC1 motorway to Maspalomas and hotel drop-offs. Las Palmas Gran Canaria Airport is the 6th busiest airport in Spain, home to Canary Islands flag carrier Pinta Canarias, as well as a hub for Irish low-cost carrier Ryanair and Spanish LCC Vueling. With the popularity of the Canary Islands amongst Scandinavian, German, British and Irish visitors, there are direct links year-round to the major European hub airports, as well as regular flights from numerous carriers to Madrid and other key Spanish cities. Pinta Canarias run regular flights serving the other Canary Islands, as well as Madeira, Cape Verde and the West African coast.